Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the forge. Today I'm going to take and show you how to make a small anvil, a small little stake anvil. You can be used for jewelry or novelty out of a large bolt. Stay tuned, ought to be a fun project. To begin on this project, you're going to want to make sure that you got a good hot fire started in your forge. A lot of coke, a lot of good green coal turning into coke around the edges of it. It's going to take a lot of heat when we're working with this size material and this mass. This shank here alone is 3/4 inch in diameter, and I believe this head here is just a little over 1 1/8 inches in diameter. So it's a lot of material to move at once, so we're going to want to be able to get a really good hot heat. I like using really hot near welding heats whenever I have to move a lot of material. This is one of the flaws I see a lot of beginners do, is that they do not get their material hot enough, and they have a lot of frustrations, and they have to take 1.5 zillion heats to move the material. So get your metal real hot, and we're going to hit it really hard. So we'll go ahead and get this in here. We just need to heat up just the head of the bolt. If you have a gas forge, you'll want your gas forge interior temperature to look like it is about a bright yellow temperature in your gas forge. If it's below that temperature, it is not going to be hot enough to work efficiently. So I'll get this heated up and we'll go to the anvil. Alrighty, real quick, I got the piece heating up. We're getting that head up to a near welding heat. I want to take a real quick moment to talk about hammer choice or hammer size for this project with moving as much material here. This side here is a 1 3/4 pound hammer that I made myself it's out of solid wrought iron with welded steel faces in it, and as you can see, a little decorative engraved and chased design on the side. This is my everyday forging hammer. Some would say that that's really lightweight, but you can move a lot of material with a very fast and accurate swing. What you want in a hammer for a project like this is you want a hammer that has enough mass to hit cleanly through the piece. So what that means is you want a hammer that has enough mass that the kinetic energy that it produces can travel to the core or to the center of the piece that you are working. If you use a light hammer per se, say a very light hammer like this one that I made, and you hit this type of material, you will still be moving material, but what the difference is you will only be moving it on the surface level, because this mass is not greater than the mass in which you're moving. And so therefore, only the surface, or only as much mass as this has, will move. So, does this mean we need a huge hammer? No, it does not. That's where the velocity and strength of your hammer blows comes in. That's the equalizer. As you will see here in just a moment, these are my main 2 hammers that I use. This here is a 3-pound hammer. I've owned this hammer for 9 years. Came from Harbor Freight, as you can see by the China insignia on the bottom. I'm glad they have that on the bottom. But this hammer was my go-to hammer before I forged this hammer. This tends to be way too heavy for most work now that I do, considering I have learned how to use a much lighter hammer more efficiently. I will use this hammer almost like a sledgehammer as I work alone without a striker. Moving this at a high rate of speed, we'll be able to overcome the mass of the bolt head. And that's what we want. Do not feel the need that you have to bring in a big 8-pound hammer like this to crush this material. Not only is this heavy as all get out, but you cannot move it at any rate or any velocity that is useful to you. We are always losing time as blacksmiths from the second you pull the piece out of the fire. So get a really good hot heat and use a hammer that is easy enough for you to manage, but large enough that it overcomes the mass of what you're working on. Hope that helps with guys if you've been struggling with hammering, and I will do a whole separate video on this at a later date on hammering, proper hammering technique, and a good choice of sizes of hammers. So we'll start with this hammer, and then we'll move on to this hammer when we get into the more finessing of things. Alrighty, good hot heat. Come down flat on the anvil with flat blows. This is using a 3-pound hammer. All we're looking to do is flatten that out just like so. As you can see, with a good welding heat on it, you can really move quite a bit of material. So that's what we have there. As you can see, the head here, the lips kind of carped, mouthed over a little bit. That won't affect the function whatsoever of this small of an anvil. Like I said, we're just going to use this for jewelry or the like. The next heat, we are going to come to the far side, not the near side of the anvil, but the far side of the anvil. And with hammer blows, we're going to squeeze this material out on either side into our horns. So we're going to essentially pinch this and pull it out, pinch and pull it out, all while squatting this down. We're going to do that on this edge by hooking this over it and driving it down more. We'll also use the vise at some point to help consolidate this material a little more to give us a little extra length out of it. But so for the next heat, I'm going to work quickly, and we're going to go right up here to this edge of the anvil. So, also you can see that it's quite scaly right now. So just go ahead and give it a brush. It won't matter, it's going to be scaly again. I just like keeping things clean if I can. Just makes me feel a little better. Alright guys, another bright welding heat. And we're going to drive this material down now using back face hammer blows on the far side. And we're going to dress it. We're going to work the other side. It likes to, this is an awkward angle of the hammer. This is where the vise jaws will be really handy coming soon. All we're trying to do is get the material to move a little better just right now. If you find the material starts to resist you and resist your hammering and kick around on you, now's the time to heat it back up. Alright, as you can see, another good, nice high welding heat in here. Still using the 3-pound cross peen. All we're wanting to do is get this material to spread. I'm just using the flat of the hammer right now and working back and forth. Trying to define that under part. We'll have to go back to the anvil. We'll have to go back to the anvil to dress the sides up a little bit. And then we'll come back to the vise to pull out more material over the jaws. As you can see, this works pretty quick. Just work efficiently. Every now and then, give your steel a good brushing. And there we are. So you can see how it forms really nice underneath on the jaws of the vise there. That's what we want. We want a good clean edge there. And you can see that material being pulled out now, that now we can draw out into our horns. So the next clip, I'll go back I'll go back to the anvil, dress this out a little bit, and then we'll work at starting to pull some of this material out for our horns. Alright, I'm going to move down to my smaller hammer. Once again, this is a 1 3/4 pound hammer that I made myself. We're going to use this now to start dressing things up. Even at this 1 3/4 pounds with the right hammer swing, you'll still be able to essentially swing through the piece or have enough kinetic energy in the piece to move the material solidly. So, plus it gives your arms a break. You don't have to swing such a big heavy hammer because we're not trying to push as much mass now. So it's okay to go down to a smaller hammer. If all you've got is the 3 pound, just continue with the 3 pound. I suggest getting multiple sizes of hammers. I have a lot of different sizes in my shop. Everything down to 8-ounce hammers for doing small lock work. And all the way up to big 12-pound sledges to do heavier work. And I use, obviously a striker with those. So we're going with this smaller hammer. I've got a good heat on it. Next clip, we'll go ahead and dress out those edges. Alright, back at the anvil. So to start drawing down those tips a little from one side or the other. The center, squaring up the center a little bit. Taking it over. Working evenly from both sides. There again, trying to draw this out. My tongue clip's slipping on me a little bit. Just trying to draw these out a little bit. So this way when we go back to the vise, we can squeeze them in this direction as well. You can always come back here to the far side of the edge of the anvil and work that out too. Once again, as you can see, it's awful difficult at this angle and you wear your arm out pretty quick doing that. So I try to go either use the vise or get a pair of tongs that you can grip it down low and against the anvil this way, or hold it up this way to draw out the piece. So, as you can see, it's starting to resist me again, but you can see we're moving a lot of that material around. So, this is where a lighter hammer's handier too. You can get it in a lot closer to the material than with a large piece, large hammer, and you can get a lot more control and accuracy. So, alright, take another heat on this. Alrighty, took another good bright heat. As you can see, she's definitely sizzling. This time we're going to use the cross peen of the hammer to try to get more material movement towards those horns. It's okay to work that down over the jaws of your vise. You can always stretch them up later. This is a lot easier to do on the vise than hammering back towards yourself. You just work each horn a little bit. Make sure you keep them even. Keep working them out. So essentially the rest of this process is going to be doing exactly this. Going from the anvil over that way back to your vise, or who knows where your vise is located at. This just happens to be mine. But you're going to work the flat side on the anvil, come back to the vise, and work the top and bottom. So the front and back of this, you're going to work on the anvil. The top and bottom, you're going to work on the vise jaws. Also, another good reason to have a leg vise, as this may not work out quite so well with a machinist vise unless you have a very heavy-duty machinist or bench vise. So I don't know what material this is. I think this was a railroad bolt of some sort. Couldn't really tell you. I got this a number of years ago when I first got started into blacksmithing. It is moving pretty tough though. You can hear me kind of winded. Might be partially because I'm fat or big boned, however you want to call it. Or it just may be because it's some pretty tough steel. So I'm going to just keep doing this and working it out, and I'll show you when we get a little closer the result. Okay, so I've worked out the horns a little bit more, and I should call it a horn in the tail section. So this is obviously clearly going to be the tail section of the anvil, and then this here I started squeezing down the material to become the rounded up horn. There's a lot of different options that you can do with this. You can do double horns. You can just do 2 flat horns. Sometimes that's nice. Or 2 round horns of different diameters. Possibilities are endless with this. It's a good forging exercise just to practice your hammer blows and techniques. If you noticed in the last one, these were kind of crooked down over the vise jaw. I essentially stood this up on end on the anvil and worked it this way from underneath to get that to be forged out. So that's essentially what you want to do to straighten that out and get a nice flat top. But essentially from this point, you draw out your horns as long as you would like them to be, and then the rest goes to grind work. So I'll do that in another heat. I'll go ahead and finish these out, and then I'll go ahead and do the grind work, and then, you know, off camera and show you guys the finished result. I'd love to take you through the entire process of this with the grinding and everything, but to keep the video in a reasonable amount of time, I'm gonna spare you the boring stuff. I think you guys are smart enough to figure that out. You know what you can do from there. Couple quick options. You can forge a small tang on this and drive it into a little wooden stump, or you can take and just make a flat spot in it, or even grind a flat spot in it down here on the shank so you can bite it in the vise. If your bolt is large enough and you have a hardy hole that's small enough, you can even forge down a tang and make it fit directly in your hardy hole. My hardy hole here is actually 1 inch in diameter, and this being 3/4, it's just too much work to try to upset that to where it would fit properly. So in this case, I will probably just make this a vise mounted anvil, and we'll go from there. But just stay tuned here in just a few seconds. I'll show you what it come out to, and hopefully you guys will like to conquer this project. Alrighty, so here it is. I used a belt sander on the top part here. You can just do just as easily with a flat disc on an angle grinder, which I used on the horn to help shape the horn out and finish it out. This whole thing only took me, in real time, only about 5 minutes to take and finish all the cleanup work on this. It would take a lot longer to try to forge this that precisely. So sometimes it's easier to just go to the grind work when you're working on a tool like this. Anyways, good clean flat surface for working small items like jewelry or little chainmail links or whatever you get into. Real quick thing on finishing after you get all this done. It's really hard with an angle grinder to take and get a perfectly smooth and radiused horn, because the angle grinder is coming in here and it's leaving little flats no matter how you do it. So what I do is I take a piece of sandpaper on a roll. I get this sandpaper from Harbor Freight. It's a great consumable from there, and it comes on, like, I believe it's a 300-foot roll. And anyways, I take off a section and then I rip that section down the middle to create little small strips like this. And then you can go over this horn just like this and work back and forth in a vigorous nature and hone that radius to a nice, round, perfectly smooth radius. And as you can see, it adjusts to the taper all the way out to the tip, and all the way out, and all the way back to the base. So, I just want to share that little quick tip there before I finish this video off. It helps you get a nice, smooth, clean horn that way. You can also come up underneath, and it doesn't really take as much effort as you might think to take and do this by hand. In fact, it's a lot quicker than using a belt sander or any other method that way. And it leaves you with a really nice result. So, anyways, guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. And let me know what you thought of the video in general in the comments section. I appreciate you watching and taking time out to do this. So, hopefully you all have fun conquering this little project. Have a great day.